The gods' realm is a world located in a dimension separate from the one in which humans live. It's a world where the many gods that watch over the surface world reside. When the hands of evil reach out to tempt the human heart, the gods, too, extend their grasp, offering them aid. The gods summon a hero from another world and send them to those desperate worlds to defeat that evil. Ristate has two problems troubling her. She has been asked to manage the world with an S-rank salvation difficulty, Jiburan, and if she overcomes this task she will become a full-fledged goddess, and that's her first problem. Rista says surely the most veteran of gods, saviors of dozens or hundreds of worlds, would hesitate to take on one so dreadful. The power of evil beings dwelling on those worlds rivals even the gods, or so they say. Rista searches for a hero to summon, and she says among the candidates two show promise. The first, Sasaki Atsushi. She says he would make a fine warrior. He lacks magic, but his attack is impressive, with HP in the triple digits from the very start. And the second one, Suzuki Yuyuko, looks to be your typical mage. She can wield blaze magic right away, and water resistance to top it off. She thinks about who to summon among the two, but she finds it very hard to choose and freaks out, and while she's freaking out a paper sticks to her face. She removes the paper from her face, checks it, and sees the profile of a guy named Ryuguin Seiya who has high stats, which is absurd because he's she level 1. Rista says she has never seen a human with that kind of status and says he must be 1 in 100 million. Rista goes to the god's realm, hero summoning chamber, and summons Ryuguin Seiya, and he appears immediately. Rista says he's dashing, but dalliances between goddess and man are most taboo. Rista introduces herself to him and says she summoned him from Earth because he's the chosen one, the one to save the world Jiburan from the cruel clutches of the demon lord, but he doesn't say anything and just stares at Rista. Rista wonders if he has already been captivated by her heavenly beauty, but Seiya tells her that for someone so obviously weird and suspicious to tell him all of that is a bit. Rista tells him she's not suspicious, she's a goddess who summoned him, hero, into their dimension, but he asks her that if she's a god can't she go and save Jiburan by herself. But she tells him there are rules. The gods created innumerable worlds for humans to prosper within. As such, a human world must be saved by humans alone. Seiya says what if he says no, and Rista says he can't and asks him to say status in all loud voice, and he asks why, but she tells him to say it first, but he shouts properties instead. Rista asks Seiya why he said properties instead of status and asks him what is properties, but he says properties work as well, but Rista still makes him say status. Rista tells Seiya he has quite an amazing status, many times over the values of typical hero candidates, a 1 in 100 million talent. Surely, the only one capable of defeating the great demon lord lurking in Jiburan is him. Seiya asks Rista what will happen to him if he dies in that world, and she tells him he would simply transmigrate back to his world previous. But if that were to happen, he can never return to Jiburan. Rista tells him the full explanation can wait for now, why not see it for himself in Jiburan, but Seiya refuses and says if he has no choice in going, then he's at least gonna want to prepare first, and here lies Rista's second problem. Gazing upon Seiya's status, she was bedazzled by its impressive values and his splendid name, and in her haste she neglected a single detail, that he's unbelievably cautious, or rather she had seen it, but entirely dismissed its potential importance. Rista says Seiya is totally beyond strange. The ceiling goddess Ariadona asks her what happened in the end, and Rista tells her that after insisting on preparing, he shut himself in the summoning chamber to train ever since. And when she said she will accompany him to Jiburan to support his effort, he said didn't she say a human world must be saved by a human alone? Besides, what kind of support can he expect from her if she tags along? Rista tells Ariadona she was fit to burst, but she reminded him of her divine nature, her absolute immortality, and skill with healing magic, but he tells her she can't even help on the front lines. How's that going to help save the world? And Rista tells Ariadona how she wishes to have pummel him. Ariadona tells Rista it's an S-rank world she's to save, so isn't such a cautious hero just fine? After all, time flows like a crawl in the god's realm, so letting him train to his heart's content is a simple enough request, but Rista says she wanted a classic adventure. Aria tells Rista her duty is to watch Seiya even if has taken refuge in the summoning room and provide for all his needs, and she also asks him to speak to him casually, and Rista thanks her and leaves. Rista brings Seiya some food, and Seiya says the suspicious person has made a weird and suspicious thing and asks her to eat first since it might be poisoned. Rista eats it, and Seiya says now he knows it doesn't take immediate effect. Rista gets angry and tells him to train until he's dead and gives him a toilet, bed and shower, and she also gives him a buzzer and tells him to use it to call for her when he's finished, and she will be sure to stay away from the room until he has done so, and she tells him his abilities will hardly show improvement by doing push-ups or sit-ups. Then she stomps off saying he will ring the buzzer in mere days, she's sure of it. 4 days later, Rista is still waiting for the bell to ring, but it's not, so she's devastated. Arya asks her if she's well, and she says she considered he might have perished within. Yet, every onigiri she left at the door was taken. In the end, Seiya rang the buzzer after a week had passed. Rista enters the room as Seiya just finished bathing, and he tells her to knock. Rista asks him how his training fare, and he shows her his stats, and he has leveled up a lot. Rista wonders how he leveled up so much with just physical training, and tells him that with such a status he can defeat a D-ranked world's demon lord with nary a problem. Seiya tells her he would have rather reached the max level before leaving, but Rista tells him that's plenty and that they should make haste to Jiburand, and Seiya says preparations complete and they were finally off to Jiburand. Rista and Seiya arrive in the town of Edona in Jiburand. Rista tells Seiya that even within Jiburand the town enjoys a modicum of safety, a perfect overture for their quest. Seiya asks her how she knows the town is safe, and she says the origin of their travels was selected with delicate care by the great goddess Ishta, but he asks her if they can trust Ishta since there might be a monster posing as a monster to lead them into an ambush, and Rista says he's quite the paranoiac. Rista tells Seiya he's still in need of some arms and armor, and they go into an arms shop. Rista gives Seiya money and tells him to consider a trifling gift, and it should be enough to equip him with masterworks. Seiya asks the owner to give him 3 sets of armor, which makes Rista scream and ask him why he needs 3 sets, and he tells her one to wear, a spare, and a spare for the spare. Rista tells him they can hardly afford such extravagance, and she tells him she will do the choosing. They finish shopping and come out. Rista tells Seiya the armor suits him, and she asks him what he acquired from the tool shop she spied him entering, and he tells her he bought 20 doses of antidotes and other medicinal herbs, as well as 10 smoke bombs. Rista asks him if it's necessary to take such radical measures, and Seiya tells her there could be monsters lurking around, but Rista tells him that it's a novice's town and he will find nothing but the weakest creatures around, and a little girl says she's right and that even her can walk to the next town all by herself. She tells Rista she's pretty and she almost took her for a goddess, and she runs and hugs Seiya's keg saying he looks cool. And she says her name is Nina and asks him for his name, calling him Big Brother. Nina asks Seiya why he's afraid of going out of town even though he looks super strong, and Rista says it's because he has the blood of a coward, but Seiya says he's not. Nina gives Seiya a charm she made, but he thinks it must be a cursed item. Nina's father comes to get her and says she's talking to strangers again, but Seiya thinks he's a thief that's using her to lower his guard. Rista drags Seiya along and tells him the sooner he faces down a monster the better. Rista sees a slime and she tells Seiya slimes prefer to bodily charge their enemies with a series of hops. Should it impact, its acidic mucus will cling to his skin. While most potent, it is usually shaken off, so it's of no matter. Seiya attacks the slime with his sword and destroys it, and Rista says he will go so far for a mere slime, but he says it's not over yet, and uses his Hell's Fire, but Rista tells him there's nothing left of the slime to kill, so why unleash his full power against it, and she tells him his first attack completely annihilated it, but he says one should never let his guard down. Rista asks him if he used the status perception skill, and he says yes, but he'd be a fool if he trusts everything he sees, but Rista tells him his skills are exactly what he should trust, and for that reason they should keep pressing on, and she tells him the next town is where Ishta has determined he will find companions. Rista and Seiya sense a foul presence and a demon appears, and she says she's one of the 4 heavenly kings from the demon lord's army, and her name is Chaos Makwina. Rista wonders how she found them, and she tells them the demon lord can easily sense the signs of a hero summoning, and although he can't figure out where it was exactly, it's just common sense to be summoned to a place with the weakest monsters. Chaos Makwina says she won't allow Seiya become a problem for them and prepares to attack them, but Seiya runs away leaving Rista. Makwina attacks Rista, but Seiya saves her using some smoke screen, and he tells her they have to make a temporary retreat, and he asks her to open a gate to the god's realm, but Makwina says she won't let them escape and jumps towards them with her huge sword, but when she landed they were gone. Seiya tells Rista to leave and he will start training, and when he's done he will call her with the bell. Makwina says Seiya can run, but she knows how to draw him out. In Arya's room, Rista asks her to lend her divination crystal, and she looks at Edona through it, and she sees Makwina, who says that if Rista and Seiya don't come out to play, she's going to choose a villager every 10 minutes and chop off their head. Rista goes to Seiya, show him what Makina said, and tells him they have to return to Edna, but Seiya refuses, saying he's not ready. Rista thinks it's okay since time flows faster in the god's realm, so they have time until the next person is killed. Rista comes to meet Seiya again and shows him that Nina's father is going to be killed next, but Seiya says he's not ready. Rista tries to convince him, but he doesn't budge, and Rista tells him it was a failure summoning him and he's the worst hero she has ever seen. Seiya asks her if there's anyone else apart from him that can fight off Chaos Makina, and Rista tells him she will search for a hero to replace him. Rista calls Seiya a coward and he says he's not, but Rista says he's afraid of dying and he tells her he's not afraid of death. But he cannot die because if he does the city will perish and that world will end. Seiya tells Rista he's ready now and